Hi guys, sorry about that. It took me a second to get the old internet confoobling. Um, so, hi everyone. Uh, so today is actually a fortuitous day for the stream because I've gotten some feedback recently from trusted friends who say that they think what I'm doing here is interesting, but that I'm not as legible as maybe I need to be for a general audience whose good faith can't be assumed at every level. Hey, Alex, how you doing? And that I kind of need to reel in a little bit because bad faith actors can take things said in the heat of a discussion out of context, and then becomes part of the arsenal of weaponry against Chapo. And I respect and love my coworkers very much, and I don't want to see them threatened in any way. So I'm taking that into consideration. And one of the pieces of advice I got, which I understood sort of as as a theoretical point, but which was hard to really commit to on the stream because I get excited and kind of fly off, is to ground things in specific examples. Like I think the talk about Napoleon we did yesterday, where we talked about Napoleon and what he did vis-a-vis, the Directory and Haiti. I thought that was good. I feel like I made some good points relatively, and more importantly, it felt like it was in a vocabulary that was communicable across planes of understanding to people in a large enough percentage to be worth pursuing. So I'm keeping that in mind, and fortuitously, as I'm getting this feedback, this is also the day when I realize a lot of people are saying, Matt, what is the grill pill? Matt, grill pill be. What does this mean? And I've realized now, this is a perfect example. This is a perfect opportunity to take a concrete issue and drill down on it. And at every level staying applied to the material focus and not getting spun off into the ideological realm. So let's talk grill pilling. Now, I started calling myself grill pilled a couple months ago, basically as the campaign for Sanders fell apart and as the mummified remains of Imperator Joseph Robinette Biden were strapped to a chariot and led through the forum. And it was my attempt to express my, pretty much instantaneous disenchantment from the Democratic presidential election. Because my reasoning in supporting Sanders was that a political campaign of that size and magnitude was the sort of basic shortcut through the cultural firmament that we needed to get to a discussion of actual material conditions in this country. And I feel like progress was made on that course. The Bernie Sanders campaign, in its proximate goals, was, yes, a failure, but I feel like it progressed the ball down the court. Now, did it progress the ball on the field long enough to be meaningful in the coming crisis point, wherever that comes? That's a separate question, and that's up to us. But in the moment, I knew that the danger there, and I could see it happening as soon as Biden became the nominee, is that a lot of people who had that, hi Alana, who had that energy and had basically offloaded their sense of political purpose in life onto that campaign. And the more actual work they did for the campaign, maybe, the less unmoored their emotions regarding it would be. Like people who were on the campaign, volunteered for the campaign, because they had put so much of themselves into it. I feel like they probably were a little bit more, reasonable about what was happening. But people who were just rooting for it online and investing all their energies in it, and we were basically the cheerleaders. Like that was our job. Like Amber was doing real work, but I know me, I know Felix, I know Will and Virgil. We were cheerleaders, and I think that's good. Like cheerleaders have a purpose. I mean, they improve morale of your side, and that's not unnecessary. I think. I mean, whatever. But when you have all that energy and it's all at the symbolic level of the presidential campaign, and it doesn't relate to your action, the danger is you're going to want to replace that energy at a similar level of abstraction and spectacle. And there's nothing comparable to the presidential race. So I could already feel my center of gravity, and I could see it happening to others, pulled towards, let's argue with Biden supporters until the election about why he's not worth voting for, and get called Russian bots for the next 6 months. And I just saw it all happening, and I just thought, that would be honestly a perverse and monstrous result of the Sanders campaign if people who were, relatively attuned to like the material breakdown of this country basically ignored the biggest crisis it had ever seen in order to invest in owning people who like Biden online. And I started doing it immediately, even as I was grill pilling. Like I said, I'm grill pilled. It's not my problem, but that was partially a weapon to be used against Biden supporters to say, you're going to lose now because we're not voting with your guy. Suck it. It was your fault. It was just a way to own them in a different. I was owning them by winning by my guy winning primaries, but then that didn't work anymore. There were no more primaries to win. So now I'm owning guys virtually by reminding them that in the future they're going to be owned. Like, yeah, you own me now in this primary, but in November you're going to be owned by me. And that's why I would just post a picture of Robert Downey Sr. from Boogie Nights at every complaining liberal who was talking, already preparing themselves to blame the Bernie bros. I would be like, that's not my problem. That's not my problem. But of course, the fact that I felt compelled to post this in every one I saw, I actually at one point went hunting for Biden supporters to post the guy at. Obviously, I think it's my problem. And I know it's my problem because a Biden presidency very well might be the end of the American political experiment. Like in real terms. I mean, by a Trump second term might be too, but both of them are in a real. I could not think of two parties and two people representing two parties less able to deal with the coming situation, whatever it turns out to be. So, it's my problem, but the psychic cost of being sad that Biden loses—that's not my problem. But obviously, I still have anxiety about what's going to happen because now I needed to post at Biden supporters to own them. And that's when I realized, no, I have to actually take the... And so the grill pill was ironic. You guys know the meme of the guy flipping the burgers and he says, Klansmen, racism, politics, I just want to grill for God's sakes. And of course, that was an ironic appropriation because there's nothing... Nobody talking about that cares more about what they're talking about than somebody who posts the grill guy, because you're trying to cover up for... the knowledge that you are in fact mad and red and nude and owned and all those things that you spend your life terrified for other people to find out about. Rushing in with my tongue. Okay. But it's like, I honestly feel like the quarantine helped sort of break my rhythm, obviously, and made me sort of have to reassert where I was finding value, where I was finding like enjoyment. And I realized that grill pill is really an approach to the internet more than anything. The internet in general, but specifically for younger people who find their politics and hone their politics online. And the essence of grill pill is to log off and grill instead. And the grilling can be whatever it is that's actually in your life that gives you a sense of satisfaction. Because all that energy you were expending, and I was expending, caring about the presidential election, which, like I said, two terrible options. Like I said, things might change if Jesse Ventura runs and gets some gas, gets a little bit of tread in the tire, and things keep getting worse. But barring that, that is a sterile investment. You're not going to get anything out. Nothing in your life is going to get better by focusing on the presidential election. So grill instead. And by that I mean focus on something in your life that brings meaning to it. But that goes beyond the internet. That goes beyond just caring about the presidential election. It goes broader to caring about politics insofar as your caring about politics is expressed by going online to talk about them to people. And more likely to argue with people about them or to make fun of people about them. And obviously this is hilarious coming from me because I'm one of the Pied Pipers that brought people onto these platforms. Now I think in retrospect, I feel relatively proud of my position because I honestly do feel like Chapo was the opposite of a fash pipeline. It was a pipeline away from alienated young white men from the lure of the genuinely transgressive web right. Because when you're alienated and you're online, and one group of people tells you that you're a too stupid piece of shit who should cut your dick off for being a white male, and another group is saying, we're going to make fun of these people who think you suck, your commitments at that point, which aren't very strong because you're just getting online, they harden very quickly. Hello, Blair. They harden very quickly. And we were an alternative to that. It's like you can still have fun, you can still do jokes, you don't have to be like, obviously all those rad libs that people hate, they were getting the same joy out of the internet too, but theirs was in policing. Their joy was in suppressing ideas. They thought they were doing a good thing by making other people miserable, those people being the white male cis gamergators. But of course, for the white male cis gamergators, their enjoyment come from annoying those people. And that starts as just a desire to antagonize, but over time, it gets rolled up with a bunch of other beliefs because you're in contact with people who are all similarly allied, generally in terms of background and racial identification and gender and things like that. And those going to solidify arguments. And that's what happened with arguments within the left and between the left and the right online. It was this sterile contest. And it continues to be, and it can only be a sterile contest. And the Grillpill idea that I'm coming into understanding is that when you log online to talk about the internet, to express your political opinions, what you're doing basically is you're displacing your material and spiritual alienation from the society you find yourself in, and sending it out onto the internet to get resolved. And everyone has some percentage of material and spiritual alienation, and they're absolutely inverse to each other. So, like, the Chapo fan or alt-right NEET is a classic example of somebody who's not really is genuinely materially deprived in that they can't really expect to own a home or start a family, even if they wanted to or knew people to do it with. But they have a home because they live with their parents or something. So they're wildly alienated from the situation, mainly in the force that even though they have free time, way more free time than somebody who works a lot of hours, they have all of their free time is alienated because they are judging themselves and hating themselves for being idle. At some level, they believe themselves to be useless because they've internalized the notion of work as worth. And that uselessness has to get sent somewhere. And at some level, you identify it as a political problem. If you do, a lot of people don't. Most people don't. I mean, all those people screaming about Jerry Dunk headphones on Facebook have the same alienation in different degrees, and they're expressing it Jerry Dunk for stealing his headphones instead of the president because their relative lack of alienated free time makes them less likely to abstract away their concerns into the political realm. They're more likely for them to be concrete. So you have people who have this perfect combination of alienations. They go online and they express their opinions. And they think, they have some subconscious idea that by doing that, they will alleviate their suffering in some way. They don't necessarily think that out loud. And in fact, they might even tell you to your face and believe it. Actually, no. I know I'm not doing anything. I'm nihilist. But they're not. There's no such thing as a nihilist. The only nihilists are in the graveyard. They have some sort of belief, and if they're engaging politically, they have a political belief. Even like black pill people who don't say they want politics and thinks that like voting is a cope, they are still gaining satisfaction from antagonizing a group of people who in their mind are political opponents. And so that's what internet political That's what internet political dialogue, to be exact, is. The thing is, it's inevitable and in fact necessary first step, because that's how change happens in a society. According to, or that's how change generally happens in the capitalist modernist context, is that you get an overflow of alienated free time among like the lower bourgeois in a society, and then that alienated free time gets directed towards the purpose of making the political situation that made them alienated change. The material conditions change, which allows them to reach more people who now are, because say they all lost their jobs, they don't have as much they don't have as much alienated labor time. Now they have more alienated free time, and because in addition to that they have less resources because they're getting paid for fewer hours, they are more alienated in general. And so that time that the labor alienated, or the time that the leisure alienated middle class, they build up answers. They bounce off ideas about what's wrong with the society. So when more people are ready to listen, they're there to hand it off to them. That's basically like since the French Revolution. That's how social change has moved. Not always in a revolutionary sense, sometimes gradually accommodated by the system, but that's the move. So this is a necessary first step. It was a necessary first step. The internet left was inevitable, because that's where the people, they used to stand on street corners and hear guys yell in Hyde Park. Then the economy got more abstracted, communication and symbols got more abstracted. They listened to guys on the radio. They handed out pamphlets in newspapers. Now they're on the internet. And it's all because they are trying to work out for themselves why they don't feel good, even though their lives are, compared to others, even in their own country, city, neighborhood, okay, materially. The thing is that they have nothing productive to do, because the economy is only based on profit. And it's like, I'm sorry, we have nothing for you to do. You can just hang around. Even though we've created a structure of incentives and values within the society that means that you basically mean nothing. And now you just have to sit with meaning nothing. Well, if you sit with meaning nothing long enough in front of a computer, you're going to put that out there. Hyde Park in London, the Speaker's Corner. So that was inevitably going to happen. And then ideas got refined out of that. That's where you had, like, the rose emoji guy. Like that was a type of person who put political energy into a computer, and then it like affected their behavior. They started going to meetings at DSA. Maybe they knocked for Bernie, and that was them trying to act more closely to their actual physical situation, because that's what the feedback loop is. You start off with a vague sense of alienation. You put it out into the world and try to make sense of it. Other people talk to you about it. You refine either through conversation or public media or social media, which is the latest stage. You refine it into a belief system that convinces you enough to change your behavior. Now you're ready to knock on doors. Now you're ready to do the Bernie dialer. Now you're ready to actually do this. And guarantee you that everybody who did that felt better about themselves while they were doing it than they did on the computer. And now Bernie is gone, and people don't know where to put the energy, especially since a lot of them are either working 80 hours a week at jobs that could kill them or kill their family members, or they're buttoned up with nobody to talk to and nowhere to put anything but the internet. And so my advice to everybody who's feeling that like dislocation of, okay, now I got to find meaning again. But the thing is, now that thing that gave them their meaning, it's all frozen now. It's all reified. These categories are completely fragile, and these categories are they're fragile if they're hit in a certain way, but they're completely fixed. So there's no more dialogue to do. All you can do is bang your head against the wall, make other people feel bad, and then feel for a second slightly good about making them feel bad. And then but it'll get worse. It'll get less and less effective over time, and you'll feel more and more misery, and you'll have to put more and more of that misery into the internet, and that'll get you less in return. The hedonic treadmill. You're doomed. But the thing is, there is still something for you to do. You fled to the internet the first time because you didn't know what it was. And now you're going back to the internet. Now, you went to the internet the last time and found it. I know I did, or something closer to it. Now going back with the same conditions, nothing's really changed. Everything's been hardened. There's no more growth there. There's only slow decay of your interest in politics. Like, at the end of that hedonic treadmill, you are black-pilled because it's like, I don't get anything else out of this. I don't get anything else out of caring about politics. And the only way you're going to find... But the thing is that when you hear get off the internet, it's terrifying because you still don't know what to do. And so what am I going to do? Sit here with my thoughts? Oh my God, I'm going to go insane. Well, that is where the grill part comes in. And I don't mean grill like in the sense necessarily of a Weber or whatever. I mean, look around you. Find something that you are good at in some combination of talented at, but also willing to keep trying. And what that willing to keep trying is the closer something is to you, the easier it is to get you to do it. Like somebody says, hand me a pencil, you don't even think about it. Somebody says, help me move, you got to think about it for a while. Because physical exertion, physical existence in space-time is wearing. It wears on you if you are not centered, basically. And the way you center yourself is do something that you want to do. Like, it's easier to move than it is to help someone move because it's your apartment. And it's easier to move than pay, and the guy who's getting paid to move you, it's harder for him because he's not doing what he wants to do. You got to move. It's your place. So that is less alienated time. And it's all about getting closer to your actual conditions. So you might be terrified that you have nowhere to put all that political energy, that sense of identity you got from being a person with politics that were expressed on the internet. If I can't express them on the internet, I don't have these politics. Well, even when you were expressing them on the internet, you really only had those politics to the degree that you acted on them off the internet. And so what you do is you take that energy and you essentially have to depoliticize it. You have to recognize it as a drive to feel useful to yourself, not to society and not to your boss or anything, which is like the micro propaganda version of the need to create, to yourself first. And so find something that is enjoyable to do but takes concentration and do it. It could be grilling delicious meats, whatever. It could be, I saw a guy today, he's rebuilding a arcade cabinet from the 80s. Whatever it is, it needs to be something that you can focus your attention on completely in the here and now and get better at or complete something. Gaming is the opposite of that. Gaming is just more of the internet. Gaming is more offloading your need to be directly addressing your needs that are in front of you into a psychic realm where they can only ever fall down the hedonic treadmill like your belief in politics did. Now, gaming can be done in the right frame of mind to be useful, to be, practice, but it cannot be, like, the fact that gaming existed as a place for people to put their alienation is one of the most counter-revolutionary things about American society, like in broad structure. Just the fact that they're with the internet and with computers and with gaming, there's so much place to dump your excess and unexamined alienation that it really undermines your need to address the alienation fundamentally by asking, what do I do? And so you start by focusing on the here and now, and if you still have political views and you still believe in them, then there's a reason you believe in them. And now that you're closer to the bone and you're not purely trying to work back, because what you're doing by going on the internet to find out what to do next is you're trying to work back in symbolic levels back to reality from abstraction. And there's only so far you can go before you're going to get knocked off course by intervening events. In this case, the very structure of dialogue and political communication on the internet. It's going to push you off course. You might get there eventually, but it's way too inefficient. And in the meantime, you're just getting older, you're getting more alienated, you're getting more aware of death, and it's harder and harder to focus. The only way to do it is if you're working in both directions. That is what creates the signal that brings, like, you can still throw stuff out there on the internet and, like, think out loud, but only if you have a day-to-day, in-your-face practice of not even abstract political belief, but belief that doing this thing will make me not happy in a distracted way that, like, masturbation and gaming does, but in a genuinely constructive sense that you feel like you are building something. Now, I guess that could be gaming, but I would just say most people do not approach gaming that way. I would say that if you get mad gaming, you don't approach gaming in a way that would make gaming a construct. Basically, it has to be a thing you can do that doesn't make you upset, or that makes you upset in a way that just that can be rechanneled into the project. Like, I've seen too many videos of guys who get their computer turned off and throw the remote into the screen to think that is a regulated emotional distribution. So, but once again, like, you could, through, if you're true to yourself, basically, if you aren't lying about what you want, gaming can be it. And the key there is that if you do something and you don't like it, don't stop doing it, just stop doing it. And certainly don't try to say, like, well, I'll do something else too, and split your attention. Don't do either of those things. Say, why is this upsetting me? Why is this irritating me? What should I do in this moment to make this project, this activity, meaningful? And, like, you might have been struggling with an issue related to, like, I don't know, learning to play the guitar or sculpt. And you got frustrated because you weren't willing to push past your confusion. And that's because you didn't need to. There was somewhere else to put your energy into temporarily, but it's always going to grind away. The only thing that's sustaining is focused attention on a project in front of you. Now, while you're doing that, while you're learning what you care about, you're learning what you value and how much you value it, and what activities you're going to most easily be able to maintain that sense of being on the beam, of being where you should be, of actually doing what you want to do in a deeper way than you could ever tell yourself. That makes it way easier to figure out what to do to express your politics, because you're focused on the here and now right in front of you. So all of a sudden, maybe like a fucking, if you really like people say electoral politics is done. Fuck Bernie. All right, Bernie lost. Electoral politics is done. Well, no, nothing is done until it's no longer part of the political structure. You know, like, elections are there. People are going to put their energy into them. Just because you say they're irrelevant doesn't mean everyone else is going to agree with you. But don't do electoral stuff if doing things like calling people's houses, knocking on doors, if that is too hard for you to find meaning in, don't say, actually, electoralism is bullshit, really. Say, that isn't what I should be doing to make things better. If you do like doing that stuff, if you worked on the Bernie campaign, and that stuff gave you a sense of purpose, and you found that you enjoyed it, time flew fast, it wasn't the scary thing you thought it would be, well, then find a campaign closer to you, closer to your concerns, closer to your actual, literal, physical area. All politics is local, as old Tip O'Neill said. But like I said, maybe you don't like electoral politics, and it's like, you might have a theoretical reason you don't like electoral politics, but you also have to examine yourself. How much of your hatred of internal politics, or of electoral politics, comes from the fact that you don't want to knock on doors, the fact that you don't want to call strangers and talk to them. And if that's it, then you're like, well, I have to re-examine my priors. If that's not it, though, you still have to reaffirm that by testing theories out in the real world and seeing what brings back to you a sense of purpose. And so, while people are I mean, I'm assuming if you're watching me on Twitch at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you're probably not an essential worker. And if you're not, take your time, take this idle time, and be bored for a minute. And don't do two things at once. That's the big one. Because the real tip to getting off Twitter is Twitter is actually very easy to get off of. And it's very simple. Don't do anything else. Don't have Twitter scrolling while you're watching a movie. Don't have Twitter open with a bunch of other tabs. Just scroll Twitter. Guess what'll happen? It'll get boring pretty quickly. I mean, they're very short little things. There's very little content to them. How many really great tweets do you read in a day even? And you'll get bored. And the thing is that maybe in the past you hit that boredom and then you just got mad and decided to troll someone. Put some epic memes out there to get people mad. Now you're interested again. Now you have jouissance coming back to you from the computer. Or you turn the TV on or you do something else to leaven the sort of deadening monotony of these little dumbass things coming in. So when that happens, try it the next time you're on Twitter. Just focus on Twitter. And when you get bored, ask yourself why. What is it boring about this? And I think you're going to come to realizations yourself about the limitedness of that platform. And of course, the thing is, these are things that you've told yourself a million times. Twitter is a waste of time. Twitter is stupid. Twitter doesn't matter. But you're still on it. So clearly at a deeper level, you believe it does matter because it serves a deeper emotional purpose for you. It gives you validity. That stuff about it not mattering, that is psychological cover to allow you to be vulnerable there, to be potentially observed in your own state, which is, of course, our nightmare. So that we say to ourselves, it doesn't matter, this is stupid, that's actually is dumb. So that we can protect ourselves from the thing we need, because we're so vulnerable with the need. So if you ponder Twitter after sitting with the boredom of it, you'll realize, oh, that stuff I used to mouth about it being a waste of time, that's not just bullshit. That's literally true in the sense that if I keep doing this, I'm just going to keep getting anxious and bored. And I'm not going to be able to leaven that anxiety by expressing it elsewhere with different distractions. So you put it down instead of trying to multitask. Now what do you do? Well, what do you want to do? What do you really want to do? And if the answer is something like what, it's like it can be anything. I want to eat a bagel. Go for it. But eventually, keep it like that. Like, what do I want to eat a bagel. I want to read this book. I want to watch a movie. Don't go for it. Just do that. But of course, eventually, the alienation is going to creep back in. You're going to just the alienation of the fact that your oaf moron game show host, rapist president, and his incompetent staff of cronies and buffoons have doomed you to an indefinite detention in personal self-imposed jail. That's pretty fucked up. And he's running for re-election against a senile mummy who promises to do all of the same things. But Trump is running on 9/11's worth of people dying every day until election day. And Biden's, Amber said this on the show we recorded today. It was very funny. Biden's bid, what do you call it? Biden's raise of that bid is, how about 9/11 every other day? That is a horrifying situation, an unconscionable situation. And so you want to fix it. What to do? You're going to want to run to the computer. Don't do it. Sit with that discomfort. Sit with that alienation. That this world, this country, is barreling towards apocalypse. No one has any conception of how to stop it at all. But people are going to have to be there to pick up the pieces. And what are you going to do to make that possible? And you're not going to have an answer, is the thing. You are not going to have an answer. And that uncertainty is what used to send you off to the computer. It's what sent me off to the computer. But if you just basically take that feeling and incorporate it into whatever meaningful task that you have invested your attention in, you will eventually start to realize the political contours of the world around you and what you can do about them in a positive direction. And I can't tell you what that is. And you can't tell you what that is now. You're only going to be able to tell you that yourself that weeks from now, maybe, if you truly refuse to give in to the lure of the spectacle of online politics. If you choose to grill, basically. Now, for people who are who are listening to this, who are actually essential workers, I genuinely am thankful for you. Although I understand that the real motivation is not some sort of hollow notion of patriotism, which is the same scam we pull on the troops. It's so you don't lose your job. It's so you don't lose your house. It's so you can't eat. You know, someone says grilling costs money. Don't. It doesn't have to involve anything. It could be learning to draw. It could be learning to hacky sack. It could be doing slacklining. The content doesn't matter. The content doesn't matter. What matters is the practice of focusing on what's in front of you in order to ground your political beliefs and make your action towards them more effective. And the more effective it is, the more you'll want to keep doing it. And the enemy of all that is just offloading your sense of alienation onto the internet, letting it dissipate there. But then the thing is, it all curdles back into more self-loathing. It all comes back as self-loathing because you just kind of displace the feeling for a few minutes or a few hours, and now it's back. And now you got to sit with it again. Well, if you're sitting with it and doing nothing, that's what I felt for years and years. I was absolutely paralyzed because I didn't know what to do with myself, because I was thinking at a level of abstraction far removed from in my actual life. I distracted myself from the question of what to do by jacking off, by going on the internet, by wasting my time, like in a literal sense, in being miserable for longer than I needed to be. And I look back on it and it's like, Jesus Christ, isn't alienation just depression? It's a facet of depression. Depression is a facet of that degree of spiritual alienation that comes from your degree of idleness that you do not value. Like leisure, Paul Lafarge talks about this against work. Leisure without the constructs of a wage-based society is a blessing. But the thing is, we don't have that. We have a little bit of it, the weekend and stuff, where you can relax and not feel guilty about it. But if you're not contributing generally to the economy, you're going to feel guilty about it. And that guilt turns into paralysis. And the paralysis leaves you totally focused on what's in front of you. Like, that's the thing. Depression is, like I said, only seeing the first foot in front of you. But the thing is, depression is only seeing the foot. It's not invested in where the foot is going and what the foot is doing, or the hand, or anything. You have to invest your surroundings with meaning through action. And doing that will make it easier for you to channel that rising anxiety that, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to live in this country for much longer. I don't know who's going to be able to live in this country for much longer. And connect it to a useful practice. And the thing is, how do I know it's useful? It's very simple. It's useful if it doesn't make you feel bad. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that like negative emotions won't be related to it. It means that the negative emotions are external to the practice. Like if somebody yells at you while knocking on doors, that's going to make you feel bad for a second. But that's from someone else. If it still feels right for you to knock on the doors, it's right. And you might say, well, yeah, but you might have reasoned wrong in like what politics to support. That's true too. But you're not going to find out. Like the idea that you're going to reason your way to it is a trap that keeps you locked in here. You can't reason your way to it. Reason is part of it, but you reason down while acting up, while doing things up. And then they meet in the middle at some point. And then you are actually, you're on the beam. All right, so does that sound legible? Does that sound less leavened with like translation errors and feedback than previous stuff? I don't know. All right, good.